Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called President-elect Donald Trump to congratulate him on his election victory. The two leaders reportedly discussed some of the most burning issues facing Israel in a multi-front war. More from ILTV, Steve Leibowitz.
Prime Minister Netanyahu called President-elect Trump even before the concession call arrived from Vice President Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris has now called President-elect Trump to concede the race. She and President Biden promised that there would be an orderly transfer of power on January 20th.
But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
Netanyahu and Trump have a strong relationship dating back to the first Trump presidency. Netanyahu visited Trump at his home in Mar-a-Lago in the closing weeks of the political campaign. That meeting came after a tough conversation at the White House with Prime Minister Netanyahu and Vice President Harris about the conduct of the war in Gaza. At the time, the meeting was seen as a sign that Netanyahu longed for Trump's return to the White House. Netanyahu and Trump reportedly discussed the various security threats Israel is facing. Details of the conversation were not released except to say that security matters were discussed. Topics likely included the threats from Iran, Iranian nuclearization, and the ongoing wars in Gaza and Lebanon. During the election campaign, Iran reportedly plotted to assassinate Trump. In public statements, they now say the election changed nothing.
عرض می‌کنم تحریم‌ها مقدار زیادی قوه داخلی ما رو تقویت کرده و اقتصاد امروز به اندازه کافی در این راستا توان برخورد رو داره.
Hamas called for Trump to end what it called the blind U.S. pro-Israel bias. Meanwhile, the Biden-Harris administration remains in office until January 20th. Until then, Washington and Jerusalem need to closely coordinate on the many aspects of Israel's multi-front war. The question is, how much, if at all, does President-elect Trump plan to be involved in the meantime?
And joining us now is former Israeli ambassador to the United States and former Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon. Danny, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
So Trump has won the election. Based on your experience, what does this mean for Israel now? What policy changes are we likely to see, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I think we have to look at the record. I think that Trump had an excellent record when it came to Israel. He was the only president of so many who promised to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and didn't. And he was the only one to do it. He also recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He defended very strongly Israel in the international arena, in international organizations like UNESCO and others, threatening them to withhold funds if they were singling out Israel and condemning it. And I think also his strong stance on Iran also was very important for not just Israel's national security, but to the entire region in the Middle East and even beyond. So he will be now coming back. This is his second and last term. I would say devoid or free of any political let's say, pressure or considerations. I think he may want to work for his legacy. And he has mentioned so many times that he would like to bring about peace in the Middle East. And in that, on that respect, it's certainly Israel's interest to have peace here, but without paying an exorbitant price, which may compromise our national security. So in that case, it remains to be seen how would he want to, what are the details of this peace. For instance, we know that he would like to extend the Abraham Accords, which also was under his leadership in 2019. Saudi Arabia, in order to do that, to normalize relations with Israel, stipulated a Palestinian state. He also, by the way, with the deal of the century that he presented, also talked about a two-state solution, side by side, living Israel and a Palestinian state on almost 70% of Judea and Samaria. There are too many moving parts to really, let's say, surmise what would happen, except that he's a strong and staunch supporter of Israel, and I have no doubt that Israel will benefit from Trump's presidency.
So indeed, a lot remains to be seen. Now, with President Biden still in office for the next 3 months, how should Israel navigate its relationship with the United States during this critical period? 3 months, after all, can be very significant, especially as Israel faces multiple active fronts and the potential threat of an imminent attack from Iran.
Well, although he has only until January 20th as a lame duck president, he still has full powers with and full authority. I think that Israel should, of course, conduct its foreign and security issues according to all our interests. I believe also it's the U.S. interest of having Israel, a strong Israel here in the Middle East. I believe that Biden also proved himself to be a good friend of Israel. He called himself, till now, calling himself a Zionist. And he also now, for the remaining of his term, will be free of political considerations, meaning specifically the very progressive, let's say, part with the Democrats or the Arabs or Muslims in the Democratic Party, and that means, I think, that he will also keep Israel's back, and in that respect, I think we should just keep on an even keel.
So Israel should be working with both administrations, the one still in place and the one forming. They surely will have different approaches to how to handle the war, be it in Gaza, in Lebanon, or with Iran.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I would really like to see going back to the bipartisan support of Israel by the United States. Unfortunately, under President Obama, the Democratic Party just turned away, partially at least, from Israel. I would like to see that coming back. And in that respect, I think that with a Trump administration, we will have less constraints. And when we talk about war in Gaza or Lebanon, other considerations as collateral damage, which Israel is trying to minimize and doing it better than any other military in the world, but still, under the Biden-Harris administration, we had a lot of pressure, in a way, tying our one hand behind our back, especially in Gaza, and that made it difficult for us to bring about victory and actually prolonging the war. I think on these issues, Trump will be much more lenient on Israel, and he would go for tougher conditions in case of ceasefires, both in Lebanon and on the Gaza Strip.
Danny Ayalon, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now we turn to Mayan Hoffman in Jerusalem for more on the reactions from Jewish and Christian communities to Trump's victory. Mayan?
Well, thank you, Sivan. The win by U.S. President Donald Trump brought out some of the deep divides among the Jewish community. While the majority of Jewish organizations expressed congratulations to the new president and a willingness to cooperate with him, others called it a dark day or even terrifying. Most of the statements focused on the issues important to the Jews in the United States, fighting anti-Semitism, U.S.-Israel relations, and in some cases, fighting for minority rights. The Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations congratulated Trump and Vice President-elect Senator J.D. Vance. They said, "We trust the new administration will work to combat anti-Semitism and strengthen U.S.-Israel relations." Similarly, the Jewish Federations of North America, the umbrella organization of all federations, expressed readiness to promote our values, fight anti-Semitism, secure our community, and support Israel alongside the administration. Jews from both ends of the religious spectrum, Reform and Orthodox, had something to say. The Reform movement said that we hope and pray that he will be a president for all Americans, while the Orthodox Union said it looked forward to working with Trump to bring the community together. On the other end of the spectrum, HIAS, an organization that helps to fight for minority rights and for, new immigrants, called Trump's win a dark moment, while J Street described it as a punch in the gut. Evangelicals, who helped put Trump in office, celebrated his victory as divinely ordained, and the leaders called on their constituencies to pray for the new president. Evangelist Franklin Graham wrote on X, "Congratulations to Donald Trump. I pray you look to God for guidance." In a separate post, California pastor Greg Lurie called for prayers, adding, "America needs restoration." Now, Sivan, not surprising was that about 80% of white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump. What was more surprising was the number of minorities who voted in his favor. We're talking about 67% of Latino evangelicals and another 13% of Black evangelicals.
Thank you, Mayan. In the north, incoming rocket fire continues taking a toll. Dozens of Hezbollah rockets were launched towards communities along the coast north and south of Haifa in Acre, Nahariya, Hadera, and the Haifa suburbs. Some were intercepted, others fell with no injuries reported. Last night, dozens of rockets were fired into Israel as well, with about 120 of them in a 24-hour period. An 18-year-old kibbutz member was killed by rocket shrapnel in an agricultural field near Kfar Masrik. Kibbutz Avivim on the border took a direct hit. The IDF announced that 20-year-old Sergeant Ariel Sosnov from Jerusalem was killed by a rocket impact. Several other soldiers were hurt in the barrage. Earlier in the day yesterday, Israelis in central Israel needed to shelter as well, including in Tel Aviv and the surrounding cities. Hezbollah rockets targeted Ben Gurion Airport twice. There were no major damages or injuries, and the airport remained open. The IDF is indicating that without a diplomatic solution to the Lebanon War, the operations will deepen on the ground and in the air. The Lebanese capital was struck after over 100 rockets targeted Israel, including Ben Gurion's airport. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
There was a huge fireball over the Lebanese capital of Beirut following intense Israeli airstrikes. Fighter jets attacked headquarters, munitions, and warehouses and military infrastructures of Hezbollah in the Dakhia area of Beirut. Speculation is growing of whether Israel may respond to the Hezbollah rocket attacks targeting Ben Gurion Airport yesterday and may prompt the IDF to target and shut down the international airport in Beirut. Israeli strikes followed over 100 incoming rockets that included the targeting of Ben Gurion yesterday. IDF Chief of Staff Halevi said that until a political settlement is reached, Israel needs to continue fighting in Lebanon that will include expanding and deepening ground and air maneuvers. To underline that message, some 60 Hezbollah operatives were killed in a series of Israeli airstrikes on some 20 targets in northeastern Lebanon's Baalbek and other areas north of the Litani River. On the ground, troops from the 91st and 36th Divisions continue to advance in southern Lebanon. In the past day, the IDF said troops killed Hezbollah operatives and demolished sites belonging to the terror group, including rocket launchers and weapons depots. Meanwhile, Hezbollah is giving no indication that it's planning to end the fighting, but it does say it's ready to negotiate.
على حراك سياسي ولن نستجدي لإيقاف العدوان. سنجعل العدو هو الذي يسعى إلى المطالبة بوقف العدوان.
It appears that even more pressure may need to be brought to bear before Hezbollah will give in to Israeli ceasefire conditions. That pressure may soon be applied at Beirut International Airport.
The IDF expanded its ongoing ground operation in the northern Gaza Strip to the town of Bet Lahia. The Kfir Brigade began operations after receiving intelligence that Hamas operatives had regrouped in the area. The army is enabling some 3,000 Palestinians to safely evacuate the town as the troops operate against Hamas. And for the first time in weeks, Hamas managed to fire a single rocket from Gaza towards southern Israel. Air defense intercepted one launch that crossed from the center of the Gaza Strip to the Kisufim area. It fell harmlessly. Meanwhile, reports in the Israeli media say that Israel is prepared to offer captors of Israeli hostages considerable amounts of money for the release of Israeli hostages held in Gaza. An official reportedly confirmed that Israel would be willing to pay a ransom of millions of dollars for each hostage. An official in the Prime Minister's office said Israel was also prepared to guarantee free passage out of Gaza for captors and their families if hostages are released. The official also confirmed the U.S. State Department statement that Hamas had rejected a proposal for a short-term ceasefire and hostage release deal. The United Nations has issued a strong statement saying it's not responsible for replacing UNRWA, the Palestinian relief agency in Gaza and the West Bank, signaling that Israel will need to step in if the agency is unable to continue its work. This comes as Israel moves to cut ties with UNRWA under a new law that could end the agency's protections, movement rights, and diplomatic immunity within Israel by late January.
In a letter addressed to Israel, the UN makes clear that it will not be taking over the responsibilities of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, noting that the United Nations doesn't have the capacity nor the obligation to replace UNRWA's services. The decision follows Israel's announcement that it's ending a 1967 cooperation agreement with UNRWA, accusing the agency of enabling terrorism. Israel says that some UNRWA members were involved in the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israelis, while UNRWA denies that a large portion of its staff are affiliated with terrorist groups. While Israel has yet to formally respond to the recent UN statements, its current priority is addressing the ongoing hostage crisis. Israel's UN ambassador Dani Danon spoke at the UN alongside Mia Shem, a former hostage held by Hamas and released in a hostage exchange last November. Danon emphasized Israel's concerns about the lack of UN support on this critical hostage issue.
We in Israel are focused on the hostages, the 101 innocent human beings still held captive, tortured daily by Hamas. The UN's complete moral failure is unforgivable. It is unforgivable that while Mia was locked in a cage alongside other women, none of the UN bodies, neither the Security Council nor the General Assembly, found the decency to condemn Hamas and demand the hostages' release. The UN will continue with its fixation on UNRWA, but we will always stay focused on bringing our people home.
Israel has signed a $5.2 billion deal to buy 25 next-generation F-15 fighters. ILTV's Devo Klein reports.
The Israel Defense Ministry signed a $5.2 billion deal that marks a major milestone in deepening U.S.-Israel defense cooperation. The first of the new generation F-151A jets will arrive in 2031, with 4 to 6 planes arriving each year. The agreement was signed with Boeing, which built the fighter jets, with the purchase funded through U.S. military aid. The deal includes an option for 25 additional fighters in the future. The F-151A features advanced weapon systems, including cutting-edge Israeli technology. It also includes an extended flight range, as well as an increased payload capacity that will allow Israel to maintain its strategic superiority in future challenges in the Middle East.
Since the beginning of the war, we've seen a significant increase in anti-Semitic incidents and attacks across the world, and this week is unfortunately no different. With me now is ILTV's Ariella Lachiani. What have we seen in recent days, Ariella?
So this is just the latest in a string of anti-Semitic incidents, specifically over the past year. But yesterday, at a Paris Saint-Germain football match against Atletico Madrid, just before kickoff, fans in the crowd unveiled a huge, like I'm saying, floor-to-ceiling, huge Free Palestine banner with Palestinian imagery, the Lebanon flag, blood, the Dome of the Rock. And this is just 8 days before Israel was set to play France in a match in Paris. Now, the French Interior Minister has said this is absolutely unacceptable, and he's actually not ruled out seeking sanctions from PSG over the incident. So it's good to see some outrage, because in other incidents, you know, we've missed that shock and horror. In another incident earlier this week, which to me is slightly more disturbing, members of the British anti-Israel group Palestine Action stole 2 busts from the University of Manchester. And a bust is, of course, a sculpture from the shoulders up of the first president of Israel, President Weizmann. And a few days later posted images on social media of one of the busts decapitated and also images of the bust wrapped in the keffiyeh headscarf, which has, of course, become quite a prominent image of solidarity with Gaza and the whole Free Palestine.
So what exactly is this? Is this a sculpture?
Yeah, like a sculpture from the shoulders up of President Weizmann. Now, the reasoning behind this, according to them, is that he, who is also considered, one of the founding fathers of Israel, he secured the 1917 Balfour Declaration, which, in their words, was the beginning of the Palestinian ethnic cleansing. So Manchester police have opened an investigation, but we're yet to see what comes of it.
Yeah, we have yet to see what will become of that. Indeed, very disturbing. Thank you, Ariella.
Thank you.
In a unique celebration, the Binyamin Regional Council and Psagot Winery launched a special Trump wine, toasting the recent election victory of President-elect Trump. The head of the Binyamin Regional Council, Israel Gantz, expressed his excitement, calling Trump a true friend of Israel and celebrating his commitment to the Jewish people and to the land of Judea and Samaria. Psagot Winery has launched this special edition President Trump wine, which, according to CEO Yaakov Berg, represents the bond between the people and their land. At the toast, Berg highlighted that even as Israel faces challenging times, President Trump's victory brings hope for a strong alliance and a stable future for the region. The company also expressed gratitude for the American people's support.
Psagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies are expected alongside warm temperatures reaching highs of about 27 degrees Celsius or 81 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.